For 40 days and nights it rained death from the sky. An entire world was drowning. Imagine towering waves crashing over cities, thousands of desperate people screaming for mercy. And then, silence. It sounds like a nightmare, but according to the Bible, this actually happened. They call it the Great Flood. Long ago, as the legend goes, the world had become a very dark place. Human civilization had sunk into corruption and brutality. Violence was everywhere, the strong preyed on the weak, and cruelty reigned in every village and city. It's said that people had forgotten kindness, forgotten their creator, and were lost in their own evil ways. Imagine a society where each day brought new horrors, where no one felt safe from their neighbor. According to the story, this broke the heart of the Creator. God looked upon humanity and felt sorrow and anger. He saw nothing but bloodshed and hatred in the world. How do you save a world that refuses to do any good? In this story, the answer was terrifying. You wash it all away and start over, no matter the cost. But amidst this depravity, one man stood out: Noah. The Bible describes Noah as a righteous man, someone who still listened to his conscience while everyone else gave in to cruelty. Picture Noah as an aging man with calloused hands and a steady, compassionate gaze, trying to live a good life in a lawless land. One fateful day, Noah receives a chilling message from God. A great flood is coming to purge the world of its wickedness. Nearly every living thing will be destroyed in a torrent of water. Every person, every animal, all wiped out in one unimaginable cataclysm. Only Noah, his family, and a collection of animals will survive if he obeys one life-saving instruction. God commands Noah to build a massive ark, a huge wooden vessel to ride out the coming deluge. Imagine building a ship the length of over 1.5 football fields and as tall as a 4-story building, all by hand. Day after day, year after year, Noah and his sons labored on this colossal ark on dry land, far from any sea. You can almost hear the neighbors laughing at the sheer absurdity of it. At first, they were curious, then mocking, and eventually, maybe even angry. Noah tried to warn them of what was coming. How could he not? But his words fell on deaf ears. Instead, people ridiculed the old man building a giant boat in the middle of nowhere. Some likely hurled insults, others may have threatened him, unwilling to believe his doomsday prophecy. Through all this, Noah persisted. He worked steadily, driven by a purpose he could barely comprehend, to save the seed of a new world from the coming destruction. Finally, the ark was ready, a towering lifeboat waiting on a clear horizon. As the sky darkened with flocks of birds, Noah gathered the animals as instructed. Birds, beasts, and crawling things of every kind were guided into the ark's chambers, 2 of each kind, male and female. Imagine the cacophony and chaos: elephants trumpeting, lions snarling, birds screeching as they were led into their wooden refuge. Noah's family, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, also boarded, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and faith. When the last animal was safely inside, Noah followed and shut the heavy door of the ark. Legend says that God himself sealed them in, closing the door behind Noah to ensure their safety. Inside that ark, 8 humans and thousands of creatures waited, perhaps in an eerie silence for whatever would come next. Then it began. Without warning, the first cold drops of rain began to patter on the ground. Villagers paused and looked up, puzzled. Rain was not unusual, but something felt different. The drizzle turned into a downpour, and the downpour into a torrent. Thunderheads swallowed the sky, turning daylight into a bruised darkness. Lightning split the heavens. Thunder roared like a furious beast, shaking the ground. The rain pounded the earth, heavier and heavier, as if a vast dam had broken in the sky. Soon, streets turned into streams, and streams into rivers. Crops were flattened under sheets of rain. Roofs began to leak and then collapse under the weight of water. People ran for shelter, but there was none. The storm was everywhere, and the rain just kept falling. Then the earth itself began to break. With a deep rumble, the ground fissured and springs burst forth. Fountains of the great, deep, underground waters erupted upward, geysering into the air. It was as if the planet was vomiting water from its belly. Within hours, the floodwaters were rising at an impossible rate. In towns and farms, panic set in like a contagion. Men, women, and children clambered to higher ground, desperately trying to escape the encroaching sea that was consuming their world. A crowd of terrified people rushed toward Noah's Ark, that huge wooden ship now looming as their last hope. They banged on its hull and pounded on the sealed door, screaming to be let inside. Their cries were frantic and heart-rending. Inside, Noah and his family could hear their former neighbors shouting in desperation, fists thudding against the timber. Imagine the horror of that moment. Noah's hands trembling, his heart breaking as he realizes he cannot help them. The door was sealed, and he had warned them for years to no avail. Now the time of warning was over. Outside, the waters kept surging. What started as puddles became oceans in a matter of hours. People clung to anything that floated, debris, logs, rooftops torn from houses, as the churning flood swept them away. Some tried to climb trees or scramble up hills, carrying children on their shoulders, only to watch the hungry waters rise higher and higher. By the second day, even the highest hills were islands in a raging sea of brown water. Families huddled on hilltops, drenched and cold, watching others being swept away below, knowing their perch would be next. Imagine the strongest person you know. Even they could do nothing against this flood. No one could swim for long in that ferocious current. One by one, groups of survivors on hilltops and rooftops were engulfed as the water reached them. Those clinging to treetops were washed away when the trees themselves uprooted and floated off like twigs. The screams of the drowning were gradually smothered by the relentless roar of the storm. Inside the ark, the sounds from outside turned from chaos into an eerie silence punctuated only by wind and waves. Noah's Ark, lifted by the swelling sea, creaked and groaned as it was tossed on the water. Inside, it was dark, lit perhaps by a few oil lamps. The air was thick with the smell of wet wood and frightened animals. As the ark pitched violently, Noah's family huddled together, praying and reassuring each other while the animals stomped and brayed in fear. Now and then, a heavy crash would jolt the ark, maybe a collapsing building or a hapless creature thrown against it by the waves. Each time, the survivors flinched, fearing a breach in their vessel. But the ark was built sturdy, and it rode up the waves, bobbing on the endless expanse of water. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rains did not relent. Water cascaded from the heavens and geysered from the earth continuously. Every hill and mountaintop that once touched the sky was now underwater. In the whole wide world, the only dry place left was inside that ark. Outside, all through the endless storm, there was nothing but destruction. Every living being that walked the land or flew in the air perished in the great flood, wiped out completely. When the downpour finally stopped after those 40 long days, Noah and his family might have barely recognized the sudden quiet. After the constant drumming of rain on the roof, the silence was almost ghostly. They emerged onto the deck of the ark and beheld a world utterly transformed. The violent rain had ceased, but in its place was a limitless ocean, stretching out in every direction, blending with the gray horizon. The world they knew was gone, drowned beneath miles of water. No buildings, no trees, no people, just an endless, silent sea. Though the rain had stopped, the ark continued to drift for months over the floodwaters. The danger wasn't over yet. There was no land to set foot on, not a single patch of earth to build a life. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months inside the ark as they floated under cloudy skies. Noah and his family tended to the animals, waiting and wondering if they would ever find solid ground again. At last, after months adrift, the ark jolted and came to a halt. It had scraped against something solid beneath the water. Peering out through a hatch, Noah realized they had run aground on the peak of a mountain that was beginning to poke above the receding waters. The flood was finally starting to drain. Still, all they could see beyond their wooden refuge was a vast, unbroken sea. Noah needed to find out if the world outside was truly drying out. Noah came up with a plan. He opened a small window of the ark and released a raven, hoping it would find dry land. But the raven never returned to the ark, so Noah decided to send out another bird, this time a dove. He gently released the dove and watched it soar away over the endless waters. Noah's sons and daughters-in-law craned their necks, watching for any sign of the dove's return. Hours passed. Eventually, the white bird came fluttering back, returning to the only home it knew, the ark. It carried nothing. The world was still too flooded. The dove found no place to land. Noah nodded in understanding and waited patiently for another week. Then he sent the dove out once more. The family's eyes followed the bird until it disappeared beyond a watery horizon. This time, when the dove returned at twilight, it brought a surprise, a fresh olive leaf clutched in its beak. An olive leaf, proof that somewhere out there, above the diminishing waters, plants were growing. New life. The flood was truly subsiding. The sight of that green leaf must have brought tears of joy to Noah's family. It was the first sign of hope, a signal that their long ordeal would eventually end. Noah waited one more week. Heart pounding with anticipation, he sent the dove out a third time. They watched it fly off into the brightening sky. This time, the dove did not come back. It had found somewhere to land, a new home on dry land. That was the moment Noah knew the flood had drained enough to reveal the world again. Soon after, Noah received a command from God. It was finally time to leave the ark. Can you imagine the emotion of that moment? The joy of stepping out, mixed with the fear of the unknown? After over a year inside that wooden shelter, the door was opened at last. Noah, his family, and all the animals stepped out onto solid earth. The world they stepped into was quiet and unrecognizable. Under the gentle sunshine, the once chaotic earth had been wiped clean. The ground was soft and muddy. There were no buildings left, no other people, no sounds except perhaps the wind and the distant trickle of receding water. As Noah's sandals sank into the damp new soil, he surveyed the landscape. It was a blank canvas, stained with the memory of what had happened. Perhaps in the distance he could see the skeleton of a tree or the scattered bones of a creature that didn't survive. Grim reminders of the world that was. Noah's family must have felt a complex swirl of grief and gratitude. They mourned the loss of everything and everyone they once knew. Yet they were grateful to be alive, chosen to carry on. Standing in the aftermath of apocalypse, Noah did something profound. He built an altar from the stones and mud, and he offered a sacrifice to God. The scent of the offering wafted upward, and Noah bowed his head in thanks. Thanks for deliverance, for mercy, for a chance to begin again. According to the story, God was moved by Noah's offering and made a promise in his heart. Never again would he curse the earth with such a flood. Never again would water destroy all life. As a sign of this vow, the clouds parted and sunlight poured through, painting the sky with brilliant color. Noah and his family looked up to see a magnificent rainbow arching across the heavens. It was more than just a beautiful sight. It was a symbol of hope and a new covenant. The rainbow meant that, despite all the destruction, life would go on. It was the promise that even after the darkest storms, calm and peace will return. The tale of Noah and the Great Flood is one of the most haunting and powerful stories ever told. It's a story of judgment, showing that inhumanity and evil can lead to devastating consequences. It's also a story of faith and obedience. One man's trust in a divine warning saved the future of the world. And ultimately, it's a story of hope and renewal. Even after the worst disaster imaginable, there was a new beginning and a promise of mercy. This ancient story still captivates us because it speaks to the resilience of life and the idea of second chances. It reminds us that even when humanity loses its way entirely, compassion and righteousness can still find a refuge, and a new world can emerge from ruin.